In this video, I'm going to go through some writing tips that you should follow for any academic essay. Personal essays have some different rules, but these are writing tips for academic essays. Okay, so the first one is that you need to avoid first and second person pronouns. So I, me, and my, I call those selfish pronouns. They are first person pronouns, focuses on the writer. So when I read an essay and I see the word I'm thinking about you, the writer. And that for an academic essay is not what you want. If you say you, that focuses on the reader. You is a second person pronoun. So very rarely do you want to ever address your reader or focus on yourself. If you use third person pronouns, they, them, when a person, so on and so forth, the argument is the focus rather than the addresser or the addressee. So here's a bad example. When you text and drive, you are endangering others. When I read that in an essay, I get appalled at the thought that you think that I text and drive because I do not. A better example would be texting and driving is a dangerous activity that can endanger the lives of others. Perfect. There is no you, you're not pointing fingers, and the argument that you are making is at the forefront of this argument. Confused Cat says the same thing. I don't text and drive. Why are you talking about me? Contractions are something that we all use in our everyday speech. We use them in texting and emails and friends, and we just use them all the time. They're constant. Unfortunately, with academic essays, they just aren't working. They're clunky, they're a little bit too casual, so you want to avoid them as much as possible. A few here and there won't be a problem, but if they're constant, they will hinder the understanding of your argument. So here are some examples of some contractions, and the first one might actually be an exception to this rule, is ma'am. Ma'am is short for madam, and the apostrophe marks that something has been omitted, in this case the D in madam. O'clock is actually short for of the clock. And y'all, Y apostrophe ALL is short for you all. So here is a fun fact about contractions actually, and it comes from Star Trek. So Star Trek The Next Generation has a character named Data, and he has an evil brother, Lore. They are androids, and that means so they're basically robots that look like people. So there was an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where the evil brother took over the ship, but he is a more advanced android and he can use contractions. But Data, the good one, cannot. So he cannot. But when he took over the bridge, the evil one, he said, I can't. And then everyone knew that he was the evil brother, and contractions saved the day. Okay, so spell check is not your fiend, serially. Spell check is a frenemy and not a friend. Please use spell check, but also use your own eyeballs. This sentence is spelled completely wrong, but spell check says that it is just fine. So please use your own eyeballs and use spell check as a tool and not as your best friend. Font. Everything needs to be in Times New Roman, size 12 font. This is just one of those MLA rules. It's like the speed limit. We may not understand it and we may not like it, but we should follow the rules. It used to be a difference of 2 fonts. You could use Times New Roman or Helvetica, but a few years ago they said, scratch that, change everything. It must be Times New Roman, size 12 font. Numbers. Also, the MLA, the Modern Language Association, said a few years ago that you have to spell out all numbers under 100. And also keep in mind that numbers 21 through 99 will be hyphenated, except the 10s, the big ones, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. This is just one of those rules. I don't know why, but again, like the speed limit, we don't often understand it, but there it is. Absolutes. So always avoid phrases that will never be correct. These absolutes will hurt everyone. It's very rare to have a phrase where the word everyone is correct. For example, if I say everyone loves chocolate, that doesn't work. I have a very strange friend who doesn't like chocolate. Who knew? Everyone has two arms and two legs. That is not true. Everyone blank, whatever it is probably not true. When you are saying everyone, you are literally talking about the entire world. Also, words like everything and always, those are very dangerous because very rarely are they always correct. So avoid those. Cliches. Avoid cliches like the plague. They are okay once in a blue moon, but it might rain cats and dogs when you think that one is spot on. You see what I did there? That actually took me an embarrassingly long time to think up, but there it is. We use cliches in our everyday speech, so they sneak into our writing all the time. So there's a list of cliches on the right-hand side here that just some interesting information about them. The reason we don't want to use cliches in academic writing is because they are often old and outdated, and they don't mean what you think they do. It's also kind of hackneyed. We hear them all the time, and we want academic essays to be original. So rule of thumb is actually an old law that says that a man can beat his wife with a stick so long as it is not fatter than his own thumb. That is terrible. So just be aware of what you are saying when you are saying things. Riding shotgun used to literally mean that the person in the front of a stagecoach would have a shotgun to protect the people and the cargo in that stagecoach. Paying through the nose. We often use this, but people who had to pay through the nose quite literally would have their noses cut from the tip to their eyebrow if they could not pay a debt. I have riding shotgun in there twice. I will fire my editor as soon as this PowerPoint is over. Letting the cat out of the bag, that means that back when people would sell pigs and farm animals in bags, somebody would try and sneak a stray cat into the bag instead of the pig, so they would sell a cat to somebody who was expecting to buy a pig. And so if they let the cat out of the bag, that means the buyer would open the bag to check on the goods to see if he was actually buying what he was supposed to be buying. And if it wasn't the pig, it was the cat, and it came out of the bag, and everything breaks loose, so to speak. So that's what all of those mean, but few people actually realize that. So make sure that when you use a cliche in real life, number one, you know what it means, but avoid them in your papers as much as you possibly can. Something more creative would be, instead of avoid cliches like the plague, would be avoid cliches like a hurricane evacuation roadblock. It is original, and many people understand that. Emphasis. Do not use all caps to emphasize a point. Underlining is also highly discouraged. Let your argument stand on its own merits. It's also very distracting to have some words larger than others. So this is like one of a local commercial, for example, a car commercial. They get a bad rap, but the blinking lights and the sale, 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 and the different colors and the shouting and everything is size 4000 font. If you have to try that hard to get my attention, then how good can your product be? The same thing with your writing. If you have to try really hard to get my attention, your argument is not very good. It's not going to stand on its own merits. So you shouldn't have to call out any words, especially when in an academic paper. Again, in normal everyday life, we do this all the time, and that's fine. Wordiness. Do not use a whole lot of words when only a select few will be sufficient for the point that you are trying to get across to your reader. Otherwise, it might possibly sound like you might be using extra words in order to get the most of the word count so that you were assigned so that the paper will be longer. I'm done with my argument now, and I hope that it made sense, because in conclusion, I'm finished. This is the end of what I have to say. I bet that was as painful for you as it was for me. If you are close to the word count of a paper, but you're not quite there, please do not just start adding words. It hurts. It's painful for everyone. Go back into your paper and expand on an example, or continue an argument, or add another body paragraph. But just adding words at the end, you might as well just say more words, more words, more words 100 times so that you get the word count, because that will say about the same amount of information. In conclusion, if I were grading your paper like the old days, With a pencil and actual paper, I would scratch out this phrase until there is a hole in your paper. It is not necessary to use this in academic essays. With written arguments, you don't need to say in conclusion. It's very clear that I'm at the conclusion because it is the last paragraph, just as if you were reading a tangible book. You know very well that you're at the very end because there are no more pages to turn. It's redundant and you don't need it. So in speaking arguments is quite different. They actually encourage you to do this because your audience needs to know that you're coming up to the end of something. So several years ago, there was a politician at a convention that was speaking for so long that when he said, in conclusion, he got a round of applause from everybody. They were so ready for the argument to be over. So it clearly signals that you are at the end of something, but you don't need to verbalize that in a paper. And that is the end. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.